cracks of the plan, from Mitcham to Croydon, from London to the world. Every flaggy planet said, you matter, you're heard, but there's a man who finds you in the car.
Looks like we're alive.
Christina, how are you? Can you hear me, right?
I can hear you now, yes.
Excellent. It looks like I was frozen for a second. I don't know why. Tech is going to play with us today, Christina, so let's just get used to it. Let's
do the
best we can. I have no idea. LinkedIn's gone wrong, Christina. That's what's gone wrong, right? LinkedIn's gone a bit skew with. They've changed how it looks on the homepage, how it looks on your, how the tabs
the
on
format
yes, everything just you can't even find the events page, the events lists anymore. It's like they've removed it. I don't understand why.
Well, they're doing some beta testing, so it's very much the case that it might reappear again. Usually you have to wait 24 to 48 hours because they're doing some beta testing. And that happened last week. At least they were doing batches. Not everybody got it, but the new featured version now it's a different size format. So everybody that had their own, all the graphics not nicely posted, they looked all out of out of place. So we had to pivot quickly, not to look like if we don't know what size formats goes where.
Yeah, I'm left sitting there thinking, where is my event? Where do I find the link to send to people? It's just very weird. Look, that's probably the hardest part of my last few weeks. So I bought me a HD camera and it's just struggling with Restream. So I'm moving slowly. On every other platform, on Zoom, on StreamYard, I move freely normally. So I don't understand what's going on at all. But I'm not going to die. Here's the good news. Here's the good news. Here's what I'm really excited about, Christina. Any has merchandise. Any has created a merchandise store. Yay!
Great. What's in it?
What's in it? What do you mean? What's in it? What do you think is in it? Stuff.
Is the merchandise with your logo specifically, or is the merchandise that it's inspiring based on what you do, but doesn't necessarily have a logo?
No, I want merchandise. I want people to be able to buy stuff. Right.
Okay.
Look. There's any T-shirt.
Oh, you're using Redbubble. You're using Redbubble. That's good. That's really good.
It's hard to choose which one. I'll say that much, right? It's hard to choose which one because there's so many options out there, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you later though about a few things if you want to chat by WhatsApp. There is some public domain issues that I want to alert you of since you're using Redbubble.
I love this hat up here. This bucket hat. I'm going on holiday, so that's the kind of hat. I don't wear caps. So this is just one version, by the way. There's another version with my logo. There's another whole lot with my logo. What's my look? This T-shirt took a long time to get right. I'm not sure it's right yet because it doesn't.
Yeah, I'll tell you a few things next time we chat. Maybe later tonight. Okay.
The graphic one goes. I like that because that's the right size. So the rest of them are a bit weird. I want the T-shirt to be big like that. But Christina, I finally opened a merchandise shop. There's phone cases. If you're here, my friend, go buy stuff, right? DM me. I'll send you the link if you want. If you want to buy stuff. And it's a call to action for you to go and create your own merchandise store too. Christina's one of those who will definitely promote creating low ticket entries to our services and
And we can
working.
talk about it today when we talk about content pillars, actually, because that's a way, that's one of, that's applicable in a way.
I agree. I agree. Anyway, that's it. I'm excited. Let me stop sharing my screen. So, how have you been apart from swimming too much?
I'm not drowned yet. Good. I've been actually it has been a busy end of June, and I see a very busy July. I onboarded some new exciting people, and that's exactly, that's the way it goes. April, I don't know, I think I mentioned it in one of these live. April was a no revenue month for me, right?
Yeah,
But the previous month was great, and April
good.
was just a month where I had to connect and build for the following month. So May picked up, June was great again, and that's the way it goes when you are in this type of businesses. So
Yeah,
it's when it rains, right? So now it's
yeah,
I'm fully stuffed. So
yeah. No, it's we still have, I guess, dry months, but it doesn't feel as severe. The months of peace and famine like we used to have. It
mhm.
doesn't.
No,
It
it's not
doesn't.
the same. No.
No, it's not the same. I think we're better at managing our income over a period. So I think I'll put off invoicing the client until the time is right for me. And that way I don't even notice the gap to new clients in that sense. I don't have dry months. And I got some clients who pay for social media on a retainer, so at least they always pay. So that keeps me happy. There's many things we have to do to keep business running, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm actually talking about that on Wednesday. Different ways that you can keep afloat, having multiple revenue streams on Leah Garcia's shows.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Worth it Wednesday, my friend. No, do go along. I'll try and be there. I'm sure I'll be there. I think it's six p.m. my time thereabouts, something like that.
Yeah,
12
and
central. Yeah. Anyway, so what is our topic today then? What are we talking about?
but today we're talking about content pillars. That it's not just, oh, what am I going to post today, right? There is a whole strategy behind it. So
Hmm.
we've been talking a lot about escaping the 9 to 5, starting your own business, what it takes, what type of mindset, how do we stay consistent. But when it is day one or week one of this business that you planned, you envisioned, you figured out what it does, and you begin telling others what it is that it does. Now what are you going to post about? And if you are multi-skilled and creative, and there is a lot of things that you enjoy and you like to do, it can be very overwhelming to figure it out. Yeah, but what are my core topics? Because, for example, if you're somebody like me, uh, so I help you putting together your business. Well, that means a lot of things. That means marketing. That means graphics. That means LinkedIn algorithm. That means motivating yourself. It can mean, do I need to invest into something? So there are so many topics, right? But in the end, they follow under one umbrella. So as soon as you start, it is really worth it to spend a few days really thinking this through. Okay, this is what I said I do. That's what my business does. That's what it is called. And I crafted a good about page on LinkedIn. I encourage everybody to read and read and read again your about page on LinkedIn, and make sure that you're on the same page. Make sure that what it says is really what it is that you're doing, and what it is that your clients recognize themselves in. If it doesn't, if it's off and you think that it might be confusing and is not capturing those people that you really like and enjoy working with, then you have to modify slightly. But uh, don't stay generic. Definitely we have to specify. That's why core pillars, we have to specify 3 or 4 topics that are aligned with something very specific that we're doing. It's okay that, then you get in a conversation with a client and you say, yes, of course, this involves social media marketing, and it includes other things, and I can help you with that. That's not going off topic with your own client. You gauge every relationship individually. In the end, you are what it says in the can, right? But that doesn't mean I do one thing only. Mindset coaches do a variety of things, right? They work with trauma, some of them. They work with building your confidence. They even work with meditation and mantras. So there is so much involved, and everybody you know specializes in one specific thing. So it applies to every business. Every business has the area of specialization and the core content pillars. So from day one, it is very important to make sure that those are reflected in your about, they are reflected in your headline, and they are reflected in your skill set. When you say what your skills are in that profile page, make sure that they reflect your core content pillar, what you're going to be talking about. You can have 50 skills, but make sure that the top 5 or 4 are those that you're continuously going to be discussing on LinkedIn through your posts, through your events, through your newsletter, through your polls. If every now and then you have a one-off post that is storytelling, or an individual article about something that you did, that's okay. That is not going to destroy your visibility. But being consistent with those core content pillars is essential for your content to surface and being associated with your LinkedIn profile. Now, the good thing is that when you create content, it goes beyond LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the number 2 most cited platform for content that is discovered outside, either through Google searches or AEO searches, AI searches, basically. So it's a number 2 platform. The first one is YouTube. So it's very important that we are crystal clear about that, because we want to be associated with what we're doing specifically and with the solutions that we provided specifically, so that people that we can best serve find us. So that's what needs to be clear before we put a logo on, before we do great looking branding. We want to make sure that that's all aligned, that reflects it all before we pick a domain name. I know many that made up a company name that looked great, sounded trendy, but it really doesn't match what they're doing. So if you don't know, and I didn't know when I first started, just use your name. Especially if you're coaching, if you're consulting, and you are a solopreneur. When you're not sure, if you really want to buy a domain, buy your own name. That's my advice there. Then later on, when you have the clarity, you can do other things. But LinkedIn is the best place to practice this, to refine this, and to get the personal clarity that you need when you're starting a business. And if you do it right, starting with your LinkedIn profile, you always have a compass. When you say, "Oh my God, I'm so into so many topics this week," right? You want to go back to that profile that functions as a compass and a roadmap, and see, is this aligned? Is this really aligned? And look, read it yourself. If you want, take screenshots of it and put it into your AI, and make sure that it still matches those topics that you're discussing. That you use kind of similar language, at least parts of it. And with your content, you're answering the questions that your client keep asking you. If you don't know what your client want from you, what different clients might want from you, I really encourage you to get on calls, try to get on more calls with prospects, and really listen. Don't focus on the fact that you have to close this call with a sale. I found it very valuable when I talk to somebody that is interested in working with me, even if I don't close the call, to really find out what it is that they need, because it really helps me. One, if I feel what this person needs is really aligned with what I do, chances are we end up closing something and working together. But if not, and there is something that sparks, some ideas for me, I really try to see, is this something that I can do? Is this something that I'm doing, but I'm not specifying and I'm not very clear about, that I want to do and I want people to know that I do. And I just adjust my, not only my content, but my profile that way if I'm missing it. It happened to me recently. Well, when I say recently, I think about 6, 7 months ago. I realized that I was doing a lot of analytics for my client and strategizing with semantics and discoverability. But I was missing out because I had completely left that out on my headline and my about page, because I thought, well, it's under that umbrella, and I don't have to specify it. Instead, since I've made the change and I produce content related to the change after I updated on my profile, I began attracting a different type of client altogether. One that I wanted, that I thought I couldn't get, but it's because I wasn't providing the answers that they were asking. So I encourage you, if this is day one, week two, or even year one, to really take a look, and before you even look at your profile, say, okay, this is my business. This is what I do. This is what I do it for. This is the transformation that I deliver. And the last 2 or 3 people that I spoke to, or the last 2 or 3 clients that I had, they were very happy about this, right? Make sure that it's reflected on in your profile, even if it's not perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect. Actually, Annie and I were just talking about, LinkedIn changing things, and then things look wobbly and imperfect. We'll talk about it in a minute. But even if it's not perfect, that's okay. Make the change and make your content reflected, and then stay with it for at least 90 days. And you'll see that all of a sudden different people are engaging with you, people that were not engaging with you before. They might be in your network, but they were not just paying attention or seeing what you were posting, because it wasn't super relevant to them. So do that. Super important that we do that. And when I say content pillars, I usually refer to about 4 to 5 at the most, right? So you might ask, oh, I'm going to sound repetitive. I'm going to sound repetitive because that's what I'm continuously talking about. You can take 4 topics, you can craft 4 titles, and you can dissect that and discuss it from different angles. Actually, I encourage you to discuss each topic from different angles, because you might use a language that might resonate better with a particular individual. So the more you dissect this content, the more you find another angle that somebody that perhaps is not, then that perhaps somebody that doesn't know all the technical term that you want to alert of, that might understand. So I encourage you to explain a lot, to keep explaining what it is that you do, describe it consistently, and tell stories. When I work with this client, we produce the result. Talk about things that you achieved for people, but also don't be. It's a fine line. Don't be continuously advertising and do a propaganda about your business. Be really human. Talk about a specific problem and something that is happening right now, and share your point of view, share what you see, give some tips and tricks based on what it is that you do. You are the expert. You know the topic really well. Whatever your topic is, you know what the myths are, or your ideal clients struggle with consistently. So let's change the language. Let's not call it really a pain point, right? Because pain is a negative word. But let's talk about, if you did this, this is what you can achieve. So that when that person is looking for the specific answer or is reading your post or your newsletter, they might say, yes, this is exactly what's going on with me. And they are more encouraged to engage with you, and then you can take the conversation from there. We're not talking about going viral here. We're talking about being very specific so that the right people engage with you, so that the right people accept the connection request. And then, of course, it doesn't end there. Just the other day, somebody told me, but I'm posting all the right things, and people like my items, but nobody is messaging me saying I want to work with you. That happens. The people message you and say I want to work with you, but it's really, even it's really rare that somebody just says I want to work with you. Maybe if you have a service page, that's usually how that happens for me. Somebody, is looking for a specific expert. And again, if you set up your LinkedIn profile well, and your service page is set up specifically, you might get somebody that is inquiring about some services. But LinkedIn is not a shopping cart. That's the whole thing. So LinkedIn is not a shopping cart. It's built on relationship. So that content that you create or those events you participate in, which are content in itself because you're doing the description, you're reposting them, you're commenting on them. So if you do it right, then what happens is that you won't get an inquiry into what via messaging. I want to work with you. How much does it cost, right? But you'll get a question, and you'll see that somebody that just engaged with you is actually somebody that you can support, and you can start a conversation that is not a cold DM, that doesn't feel forceful, but it is within context. Hey, you are my subscriber. I noticed that you were engaging with this. What are you experiencing right now? As natural as possible, as natural as saying, I noticed you were here, right? What caught your eye? So that's the conversations. The more you create stuff that is aligned with you, your profile, and people have clarity about who you are and what you do, when once they walk in your home, they are in your entryway, you can have natural conversation, but don't expect them to have their own key, open the door, get in and open their wallet, because it's really rare unless you have a massive following and you operate on volume. Want to continue, Annie, and give your thoughts? We might have lost Annie, so I'll continue. So the title of this was Purposeful. So purpose has a lot to do with this. The other day, I had somebody saying, I want to create a business, that is all about things that I enjoy, some hobbies that I had in my youth. Uh, but I don't know if there is a market for this. If you don't know whether there is a market for this or not, the thing that you can do is just try and share about what it is that you want to create, the purpose behind it, and your why. Uh, if we're testing the market, there is nothing wrong with showing up on LinkedIn on week one of being open for business and say, even if you're not ready, even if you don't have an offer, and say, this is what I'm building. This is what I plan to be talking about. This is what I plan to discuss. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, if you are in that boat, I really encourage you to do it, and I encourage you to also use a specific feature, polls. If you don't know where you can run a poll or how you can run a poll, It's right when you create post. It gives you the option in the bottom to select if you want to do an event, or you want to do a poll, or you want to do a post, etc., etc. So if you are experiencing doubt about what you should be discussing, uh, don't be afraid to run a poll. Don't be afraid to ask your network, saying, "I'm building, and I'm building in public, and this is what I'm thinking of. Which of these would be more the most helpful for, for you, for me to support you? Is this something that would be of use to you?" So running those polls is also very useful, because they create they give you data and insights. And sometimes you can use those to answer questions that you're asking yourself. I think yesterday I had a question that I've been wondering about. uh, it was about events specifically, uh, because if you know me, I pop in live, with a lot of my friends. I pop in live with Annie, Leah Garcia. Sometimes Americo da Costa, and sometimes I'm a guest speaker on somebody's podcast. So, but because I'm usually the host in, my people that I collaborate with, they do the posting and the planning. So I thought, when I work with my clients, I actually, are you there, Annie? I thought I heard him. I thought when I actually work with my clients, I actually recommend that if they do an event, they post it a couple of weeks, a week in advance. Uh, and some of the people I work with, that's really what they want to do. They want to be, going live. They want to be podcasting. Uh, so why do I recommend that? It's all completely linked to these content pillars. Because if you decide to go live discussing a topic, and that's completely associated with your brand, that's a win-win. You know that the event is there. You know that it is scheduled and posted, and you can discuss it in different angles through your post, through your newsletter, and so on. So once you do that, and then you have a conversation about it with somebody, you can go ahead and say, "Hey, we'll actually be discussing it live on this date. Here is the event," right? And you also have more time to invite people to have human conversations. Annie, I think I hear you. Are you available now? Annie? And you might be having technical difficulties, so I'll continue. So that's something that I asked somebody. I started my poll yesterday. I invite you to please go and look at my profile and participate in the poll, because I'm really curious. So far it looks like we're split. Some people want to see an event posted 2 to 4 weeks in advance, because they, as consumers, want to plan for it. Some people, they say 1 week, the way I keep it on my radar. And other percentages, so the biggest percentage is 2 to 3 weeks and 1 week. And then some people are saying 48 hours because it's decision time. And some people saying impulse, so showing up impulsively. I see that somebody's live and I'm going in. But rarely it is that. And then there is the replay. The replay applies to all of them, because whether you were planning to attend and then you didn't make it, you can always be on replay.
I say
Annie, I
thanks,
see you.
Lindsay. Thanks, Restream. I don't know, for some unknown reason, it's freezing. My screen is just freezing, so I've had to restart my computer a couple of times.
Okay,
Anyway,
I can hear you though.
I don't know where my image is. Oh, there I am. I am there after all. I think my main interest in this topic, it comes from the moment you mentioned, the moment when I said, yeah, we started this business now, we're now live. That was 15th of January 2015. So my business was now running. Everything, all the paperwork was done, registered, good to go. And then you're sort of sitting there thinking, now what? What am I meant to do? What do I do? Where do I start? And so nothing that day is always memorable. I don't think it ever leaves you. Because now before that you think yes, I'm gonna be busy, I'm gonna get clients, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. But when the day comes, you realize I don't know what to post, I don't know where to post, let alone what to post. I don't know. I think I do this. I do marketing. That's why I sell myself. When you realize that's quite a broad topic. What do I really do? So I mean, getting the clarity you mentioned right at the beginning is very important. So that clarity, and it gives you somewhere to start. And it's if you just escaping the 9 to 5, I will say everything you think on day one is liable to change. It really, it will change. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it will change. As you find your feet, as you adapt to the realities of running a business, as you talk to more customers, as you talk to more people, full stop. I think then you begin to really understand why everyone will say to you, find a niche, find a section that you really want to go deep into. You can't talk to everyone. You can't talk to if you talk to everyone, you talk to no one, right? That's another point that you made, where I think most people ignore, which I didn't, is create a website. You need somewhere. You need a home online. A lot of people these days rely on social media, which, well, if it's working for you, fine. But for most people, it won't work. You need somewhere to put your content. Today I'm complaining about LinkedIn suddenly glitching. That's a social media platform that I rely on suddenly going belly up, right? They might fix it. Well, no, I'm sure they will. They always do, right? But suddenly, without your own website, you leave yourself open to being stuck, literally stuck. And so I think that once you got those two basics out of the way, clarity and the website, then you don't want to be sitting there on any one day thinking, what am I going to post today? What am I going to post? And those days, they're horrid. They're really horrible. I say, it's easily fixed with today's content. Knowing your content pillars, and I guess working to them. Working. There's no point having a plan that you don't keep to. Is what I'm trying to say, right? I'm sure we'll see it every day. People will happily post quotes after quote after quote. You're like, are you in the motivation business? No, you're not. Go on, Christina. I can see you die.
No, that's exactly it. Well, it could be that, if you are somebody that is dealing with mindset and confidence, definitely a good quote. It's a way to attract, your audience. But going to what Annie was saying, I didn't ignore the website from day one. It's just a question of what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? And nobody knows how to answer that. In my case, I decided to start without a website. And even if I have my domain, and actually I need to update my old website, it's not a priority for me, because although it's indexed, and it's great that it's indexed, if I keep it updated, that's not where my business is coming from. Now, if LinkedIn died tomorrow, will I still be able to get business? Yes, because I have other contacts. I created e-commerce platforms where I have different multiple revenue streams. So if LinkedIn is blacked out for a week, am I going to starve? Absolutely not, right? But if you you're not a web developer, you're not a marketing person, you just go and hire somebody to build it, then it also comes the thing, who's maintaining it for you? Do you have to maintain it for you? Do you know how? So you have to assess also your skills and your capability. And when I say capability, I don't mean like, are you smart or not? I mean the time capability. Do you have the capacity? Do you have the time on your schedule to deal with this, right? So if you're putting it together and figuring it out, to me, the first is choose a social media platform that is aligned where you think your clients or your prospects or your people might be actually hanging out. How do you know? Well, before you show up as the person that has a service, you observe, you study, you see what conversations are going on in here. Can I be part of the conversation? Because one thing that you cannot afford not to have is actually social media presence. You can have the website, but along the website, it doesn't do it. It needs also the support of the social media presence. It needs to be discoverable. Uh, and anybody that has a website knows well that right now, two platforms are discoverable. Uh, and you can leverage to get traffic to your website if you're a website. One is YouTube, the other one is LinkedIn. Uh, Also, it's about, Annie will tell you before anybody else, it's about making friends and building relationships, right? It's very
Yeah.
unlikely that somebody, herds of people are going to come to your website to have conversations with you. You have those conversations through social media platforms. Then you can take them and put them on your WhatsApp list and a private conversation. You can exchange emails, other ways to communicate, take them to other platforms if you hang out them more. But you have to meet people where they're at. I've been on Substack the last 4 weeks, more consistently than I ever been because I was very part time. And well, now I met people that I can support there. I met people that can support me there, right? But it's because I decided, even if I was not as famous as on LinkedIn, right? To be there, showing up, listen to the conversations, interject, and just be completely transparent. I'm figuring Substack out, right? And I ended up having those conversations and found somebody that could help me with that while I could help them with LinkedIn. So there is all that. So relationships first. Content pillars, whether they are reflected on your website, but also on your social media, are ultimately what is going to attract your people. And you have to put them where they're visible. If your website is beautiful, but there is no traffic because you just started, you're wasting your time refreshing the page and hoping that somebody clicks, apply here, buy this offer, etc., etc. You still have to bring that version into social media, and then you can have the conversation and say, hey, this is one website. Everything is streamlined here. uh, Once we are done here, let's complete the transaction on the website. So good websites are good, but you don't have to start with one,
Yeah.
especially if you don't have that clarity, because then you'll have a lot of things to correct later, down the road.
Yeah, well, I think is that change, that constant evolution. I think we need to understand and embrace because that is our reality, And no, a website does need changing, but only if say only as you get more clarity is what I would say. So you can waste time just changing stuff. But yeah, the problem is I have with the website, which many people I'm sure experience, is that traffic is very hard to get these days. You know, but this comes back to our point today. If you create answers to people's questions, then they will come. Of course, they will. But most people don't create answers to questions. They just create content. They create any content. Even if some of the content is something that you've seen somewhere else. People, they'll put case studies, they will put, all sort of weird report, and the thing that's going to do it. I think that there comes a point when you have to accept that you're going to have to create your own identity. So that's what content pillars comes down to, right? This is what's important. This is what input is important to me. This is what I help with. This is how I can help you. And then from there, I say things can grow. You are just starting out. And I say most of them know when you're just starting out, don't expect perfection. Don't expect traffic. Don't expect engagement necessarily with everything you do. And I don't say that lightly, Christine. I don't know why my camera is gone to sleep. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I wish I knew, right? Anyway, I think the first thing we have to do is get used to the fact that we are just starting on day one, whether on social media, whether it's on the website, whether even on email. You're gonna have to build those relationships, like you mentioned, Christina. You have to get to know people, and then build those relationships, and then those turn into conversation. I think I probably leave at your point about just because you create content doesn't mean that they're going to come and they're going to be interested in what you do. Who's there? No, it doesn't work like that. And I wish it did. Let me tell you, say I've been on LinkedIn for the last 10 years solid because my business has been built on LinkedIn, right? And maybe for 8 of those years, I got trouble. Literally, people didn't care. That feeling where you think no one's seeing what I'm posting. Why do I bother? I think that's a great challenge for newbies, especially. It takes a long time to get traction. It takes a long time to build a community, and that is the ultimate aim. So the whole point of having the content pillars is that you have people interested in these topics, or in this topic that you're going to address from different angles. That has to be the aim. If you think I'm gonna do some posts, they're gonna see, they're gonna love them, they're gonna run to me with a wallet or purse in their hand, it's not gonna happen. It's just not. As you go, I think one day you're making an evolution, you make a change in your business, and suddenly you realize, oh, that was important, that was useful. For me, that change was events. Before events, Christina, no one cared who Annie was. No one even looked. So it took me a long time to eventually start seeing people, in my DMs who wanted to talk to me rather than sell to me. But it takes a long, long time to get to that place. Please. So I'm curious. There's different types of content, right? I think we mentioned many in the description. Thought leadership, entertainment. So which ones do you do? Which content types do you do? And how do you make it work? How do you make it work? How do you make sense of it? Do you have a plan? A written plan?
Me personally, yes, I plan my content, and at least the topic of my content 8 weeks in advance, and I want to make sure that I stick with it. Doesn't necessarily mean that I have 8 weeks of newsletters ready, but I know this is what I want to be discussing. I have notes. Some posts I might already have pre-created, and then I might have a long blurb that I wrote, and now I'm gonna take that, dissect it, and turn it into 5, 6 different angles of the type of content. Even these events, I don't know if you missed the part about the poll that I created for events, Annie, when you were restarting. But even these events, if I know in advance, this is going to be the topic, and I try to have that topic be recurrent in my in my posts, in my comments on LinkedIn, in my notes on Substack, in my newsletter specifically, because then it feels like it's a continuation of a conversation, and it feels that I can incorporate it with everything else that I'm doing. I don't have to prepare for it because I've been preparing for it. I've been, really dissecting these and give it different shapes and form, but it is the same topic. So if I know in advance, and I'm working on, outreach, I'm seeing who connected with me recently, getting to know them, having a conversation. I saw that somebody asked me a question in a comment, and I'm responding. The conversation becomes really natural. I can say, yes, we haven't met. Uh, I'm actually going live with Annie on Monday. Here is the link, right? And so it becomes like that, and it's a continuation. And then after the event, perhaps we get on a phone call, right? So that's, for me, everything has to be connected.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people miss the role events uniquely play. It's in marketing. I think it does more than most types of content for many reasons. It's one where you show up as you. People can see you, and I think many people want to hide behind the keyboard or the screen in the business. So then, people are gonna know you, like you, trust you quicker if they see you and hear you. A lot of people will talk about the good days of audio. I was there. It was good, but it was. Yes, we got numbers in the rooms, but I wasn't. I wasn't a great fan because they couldn't see you. Once video came in, I think it changed the game completely. Once people can actually see us in real time, and more than that, once they can actually talk to us in real time, I think that changes the game completely. I won't risk bringing anyone up today because the tech glitches is too much for my liking. But we're still here, right? Dr. Roxana, I see you. Welcome. Glad you're here. Of course, great to see you. So we're about to start doing rooms, Dr. Roxana and I. There's other people here, so do say hello. I can't welcome you if you don't say hello. If you don't say anything in comments. Of course, if you're on my YouTube, please like today's video, comment, and subscribe. Always the case, right? Always the case. Anyway, let's go back to the question I asked you, Christina. So you have a plan with dates and topics.
Yes, weekly.
Right. So how detailed is your plan? Is it? Do you know your posts for the week?
Yeah, I know the topic, and as I get ideas, I use handy dandy little portable notebook, and I write it down. But most of my planning is done through my AI chat box. So if I have an idea, I just jot it in there, and I say, working on my content pillars for the next 8 weeks. This is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to talk about. And then it reminds me, and I'll go ahead and write a post and an article.
Yeah, again, there's something in what you said. For my rooms, for example, people that probably don't know that I create a long list of topics. And I've learned to do that with my co-hosts. You and I have a long list, a huge list. So we're never less scratching our head. What we're going to talk about today. It's either I'm going to pick something from the list, or you and I will come up with something based on something that's going on in our work. I think that part is useful when it comes to posts as well. I think just being aware of what's going on around you. It's not necessarily what's trending. It's what are people. What is a problem that you've heard? recently, what's a question that clients come to you with? I used to do 1 minute videos, and so I could still go back to them if I wanted to. It's a marketing magic tips, I used to call them. And so literally I spend my time just listening out to for what can be a next topic. But the important thing is to make that note, because you have many ideas, many things come from your mind, and I think it's very useful to make that note. Otherwise, you will forget. You will forget. But if
Yes.
I send myself WhatsApp messages, literally, with topics that come across my mind. Right, and if I think that's interesting, I'll make a note of it. And before the next event, I will go and look at it and think, okay, is there anything there that I want to use? Otherwise, I find another way. To I think that maybe sometimes it's doing the research, Christina, going online and like you said, you can ask your AI, or you can ask even just go on Google. Ask a question. That list of what other people are searching for. Those lists can give you great ideas. Useful topics. If your topic is on that list, then you can guarantee people are actually asking. Someone's asked a question. And that's where you want to sort of try and provide value. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself, right? Something. Yeah.
Yeah. And about that, Annie.
I see you, Jay.
About
I
that.
see you, Jay. Welcome, my friend. Welcome. Go on, Christina. Please carry on.
About talking to yourself, right? Did you hear me when I was talking about the poll I'm running?
I didn't hear about the poll, and it might be when
Yes.
that's the only bit I missed. I had many other things that you said.
So I've been asked. So as you know, so sometimes I bug you about it. My preference is that the event, if I participate in an event, is posted a little bit in advance, right? But it cannot not always happens. People are busy. People run, as you run multiple events, right? It doesn't always happen. But so the question that I ask is, what's the preference for the consumer and the people that are hosting events? 2 to 3 weeks in advance, a week in advance, 48 hours, same day, or just watch the replay. So far, the heavy voting is going to 2 to 4 weeks to at least a week. I prefer a week myself because that way I know that I'm going live with you or other friends on these particular topics, and I try to embedded in everything that else that I'm doing. A post, a poll, an article, and then when I have those conversations with people about that, and I even comment purposefully, know that this is happening. That's the topic that I'm discussing this week. It's just natural that I can say, "Hey, come join us live," right? But if I don't have much time to do that, that just doesn't happen. And also you don't maximize your invites, which I like to use because they're free. So that's the thing. But when it doesn't happen, what does it mean, right? Does it mean it's all lost? No, you can just do the reversal. So most likely later on I will go and listen to this conversation and pay attention to some of the things that we're talking about that maybe were not exactly listed, and then I'll end up writing an article about it, maybe next week or in 10 days, or writing a post about it and refer to this recording. So you can reverse engineering, but it really depends on what you want. If you want new people that you haven't met before, if you want to make note of them that they actually showed up on this event and now you want to get to know them, then I prefer doing it in advance, right? The other way around works too, because now somebody's engaging with the written content. They might watch the replay. A lot of people, they're telling me personally, they're sending me DM, they say, I don't have time for any of these, right? But if you send me the recording, I will be able to watch it on my own time. So a lot of people do that too. But so that's all part of the strategy that I talk about. You just have to decide, first of all, what do you want? Why are you doing this? And is it feasible for the people that you are collaborating with? Because sometimes it's just not, and you cannot force anybody's hands. If it's not, you have to do it the other way around. We just have to reverse engineer. We say, I had a beautiful conversation with my friend Annie. This is what we talked about, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, it's always a weird one to try. There's no right or wrong answer, like you say. You know, sometimes it's just what you can do. Jay, I agree with you. Awareness equals mindfulness. Like Christina did say earlier, this is not about creating viral content. You know, content that goes viral. This is about just being mindful and being intentional, talking to the right people about the right things. That's what content pillars really are. You know, so I'm with you on that one for sure. Christina, look, the events thing, you know, you and I we talked about this more than once, I'm sure. You know, ideally, I want to post the event a few days in advance. Here's why. I don't want to go too early. I don't want to go too late. There's no posting the event on the same day as the event. I rarely do that. If I do that, then it's a rare thing. No, it really
Oh, we cannot do it anymore
exactly.
anyway.
Well, I think you know if you can go live on Restream or StreamYard, and it'll still go live. You know, just I think LinkedIn suddenly has its own events thing. You know, which is very odd because LinkedIn had audio, then they killed audio and said, right, you have to go to a streaming platform. Now LinkedIn's come back and said, well, now we've got our own our own LinkedIn Live thing. I don't know what that means, and I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to go live on that. Have you tried it?
No, I haven't. So, but I know that everything is changing. They're going back to their old lives because their competition is doing exactly that.
Yeah, again, I can see why. You know, but you know, look from where I sit, there's good and bad. You know, the good is that it's more, you know, it's LinkedIn, it's embedded in LinkedIn, it's part of LinkedIn, right? You know, so you might get some points for that. Well, the downside is that you are putting all your eggs in the LinkedIn basket. You see what streaming has done, like today for from the last show for Let's Show, for example, when LinkedIn wouldn't show our events, I just started sharing the YouTube link, you know, and people joined from YouTube instead. You know, so I don't want to go back to a day where we can only stream to LinkedIn. That's just crazy. You know, I don't see the great benefit of that. Yeah, I'm sure there is.
No, yeah, the only way you can do that is that after you have it on LinkedIn and it's recorded there, you can share it
Mm,
on YouTube or you can share it in other social media. It's it really again, if you're starting out, that might be great for you, right? So it really depends.
mm,
Substack, for example, they now have that you can go live on Substack, you can connect to your LinkedIn, and you can connect to your YouTube. But again, if Substack doesn't work, you cannot connect to anything.
yeah,
So that's exactly it.
yeah.
But if if that's part of it, if you're interested in meeting more people in the Substack community, you probably want to do that.
Mm,
And that just kind of comes, it reminds me of, I wanted to share this story because it's related to content pillars. So I've been hanging out on Substack the month of June, and then I'm testing something where I'm doing those mini posts. What happened is, what I noticed is because I don't have an audience there, uh, and I have a very small audience, I think 70 subscribers, something like that. Uh, I noticed that I really value the individual responses. So literally anyone that maybe was one person a day that engaged with me, now we have a deeper conversation going on.
mm.
So
Yeah.
that brought me back to revisit what I was doing on LinkedIn. I was like, wait a second, why am I not treating? Am I taking that for granted? And when I did that, more opportunities open for me. So one thing that I say, don't get all disappointed if you got 3 likes. Engage with those 3 likes. Even if it's somebody that you know and it's like, this person is not going to buy for me, just say, man, you've been supporting me for a long time, right? What are you doing? See
Mm.
it can become a referral opportunity. It can become that you decide to do something together, or it can just be that now you're in a conversation with this person, they're reposting all of your stuff, right? And vice versa. So it's so important not to take things for granted, and to really really focus and say what's going on here. The other day I asked myself, on my newsletter, I had a lot of new supporters there were not geographically from the area where I normally do business. And I said that, okay, you know what? I'm just going to have a conversation with them too and see where it goes. And it turns out that one of them is referring to everybody that lives in the United States in the network. I mean, literally, without me even asking, all of a sudden I'm getting, this person told me about you. I'm getting referrals that way. So don't take that engagement for granted. Really understand what's going on there, and see if we can open the door.
I agree with you for sure on that one. I think that we always go back to our clarity. What are you trying to do, and who are you trying to do it for? And I think that's where our content pillars must start. And look, I'm a great believer in having fun. I've done the years of serious posts. I grew up in the days of blogging. You have to write the blog every week, and so I've done the serious stuff, right? Good and bad. I've done the days of videos. Every week. Sometimes videos more than once a week. But I'm a great fan of. I don't know what is having fun. Yeah, it's having fun, really. It's not putting too much expectation on any one post. I've said, but that looks like many different things. That can just look like the work I'm doing, the things I find interesting. But essentially, it's bringing the real me to my posts. I think that's probably the most real posts that I can create. There's no greater agenda other than that. Here's a day in his life. Here's something that's happened in his work life, right? I think there's a place for that. I don't know how to describe that post. Whether is your reality, whether it's your it looks like user generated content on the one hand. Otherwise, it can look like behind the scenes. But I think there's a place for really showing people who you are in your content, in your content calendar. Again, I suppose the question I say, maybe the question to you, Christina, is what are the types of content that will help us ultimately?
They have to be completely aligned with what you're doing. So we're talking about starting a business here, whether it is a service business, an online business, or selling physical products. Whatever it is that you do, you have to talk about that. You can either do them behind the scene, or but you have to discuss and talk about the solution that what you're creating provides for others. So that's the type of content. So in my case is how do I do something? That's the type of content that gets people actually sending me messages say, I saw this helped me, right? Can you help me with something else? Or can we talk? That's the type of content that does that. So in my case, it's about writing about something that is going on. For example, here on LinkedIn, everybody it's a little bit baffled about new formats. It looks like if the website, the platform is having a revamp, or now things look. And the latest was the featured page. So you probably see a lot of people having book a call with their nice graphics and their face, right? Or download this resource for me. Well, it looked like if it was the House of Mirrors, The format changed, the size of the little graphic that you uploaded changed, and now it looked like if you didn't know what you were doing. The image that you posted is cut, your content is cut because they changed the format to give you more room to make it make it stand out more on the page. But they didn't tell anyone that that was happening. And for the first couple of days, I thought maybe they're testing something. I'll wait 48 hours and then do something. Finally, I got frustrated and I put some temporary images there just for people to see somebody. Because what happened is it was fine on the mobile version, but it looked completely twisted on the laptop, right? And LinkedIn does that. So whatever you do on the laptop, it's going to look different on your mobile. So anyhow, so I did that. And funny enough, I had some people that say, oh my God, I had somebody designing this for me and now I don't know what to do, right? And what did I do? Did I charge them for that? No, I just told them, try this. That's what I did temporarily until you figure it out. And that started a conversation. I'm not a web designer. I'm not a graphic designer. That's never been, the best feature of what I do. But at least, it didn't look like if the book a call part was cut. I just put some plain text for people to know what to do. So I have to redo when I have the time. And a lot of us are having to figure it out what the new size is and redo their graphics.
Yeah,
That's what's
well, so
going on.
is the graphics change? The graphics dimensions changing now on LinkedIn?
Yes.
It's taking me long enough to come along to the mobile version of everything. Videos and photos. They're all mobile now. They're portrait. That's a word for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you think we're going to change from that?
Yeah, they change. I mean, on the mobile, doesn't look like if anything happened to you. If you look on your phone or your iPad, it didn't look like anything changed. But then when I opened my laptop, all the images were cut. So now I had to choose a format, or I just guessed it. I guessed the format on
Yeah.
Canva. The ones I uploaded it looked half decent on the laptop, and it looks decent on the mobile. But it's really
So
plain. I put just text in there.
so what's that? So what did you guess?
What I did, I was testing it without size because I didn't have time. I went on Canva. I moved my text and shifted until it looked good enough on both website and cell phone. So I
So
completely nailed.
okay, so
Looked might look off, but that's what I had to do. It was better than what I
so
had because all the images were cut.
So are we going more towards the portrait, or are we going back to landscape? Is the question I'm trying to
No, it's
ask you.
my portrait. It's looking like Instagram now.
Okay, okay. Like what Instagram posts is different to Instagram stories, I guess. No, but
Yes,
even though
so
it's Instagram posts, then we can take that.
so it was
It's
really
not.
so it's still you see it's so funny because you really have to do so for I haven't done it. The only thing I've done, I created a solid background, and then I just center my text in a way that was visible temporarily until I know that this is not a test because LinkedIn reverts all the time, right? I want to make sure there's not a text, and then I'll redo my graphics properly. But right now, I just said I'm not gonna do anything fancy. I'm just gonna have like do this, do that on my feature with the description of what it is, and leave it alone for now. Because I keep getting people, so it didn't happen to everybody at the same time. That's the other thing. It happened to me, and then other people were not having this problem. I was looking at everybody. Everybody looked just. And this week, somebody I was working with said, "Oh my God, what's going on here? I spent all this money having somebody doing this." I was like, "Oh."
Sorry,
It's
I feel bad for people, but this is life, right? This is life. You
I
have to.
said, "Don't spend money. Just do it this way right now until you're sure."
You can spend money. You can't spend your money with me. I'm not. I don't love doing people's posts. I'll say that much. I do post for clients, but It's the bane of my life. Probably because they haven't got a plan. And when you're trying to create a plan, it becomes your plan, not theirs. It's all of that. Right? It's very confusing. Right. I suppose no. Maybe I'd say one thing that I want to mention quick before we do go is from what you're saying. That if we link the content we share, if we link our content calendar, all of that, with our profile, then we're going to be changing our profile every so often.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. We're gonna be
We're going
changing
to
up.
be changing our profile every so often, periodically. Whether it's every month, every 2 months, every 3 months. I'm saying, as the topics change, then you're saying change your profile to be aligned
Not
accordingly, right?
necessarily. No.
Okay.
So if you don't know what you're doing and you're building, chances are you're gonna be changing your profile very often, right? And that's nothing wrong with that because you're testing live, you're figuring it out, so you're not completely established yet, right? But once you
Yeah.
decide, okay, I'm gonna go with this, that's when you decide what your core content pillars are, and you need to
Mm.
stick with it. Stick with it
Yeah.
minimum 90 days. Don't change your profile. Stick with it. If you find that all you have to do an overall, it means you're changing business. So you should
Yeah.
never have to do an overall. So even if I've done some changes to mine, some of my pillars were already there. I just added something and now I made something part of my content pillar. But it was all related and connected to the main subject matter,
Yeah. Yeah.
the main area of expertise, right? You just want to be careful not to niche down so tight that all of a sudden people misunderstand you.
Mm.
And you also want to be careful not to be so broad that people say, yeah, but I don't know, this person says that they do exactly what I need. So
But I'm not.
the way that you repair that is with those core content pillars. Decide this is what I do.
Mm.
This is my people need those core pillars. That's the way they find me, right?
Yeah.
And keep with that. And over time, they'll find you outside of LinkedIn too, because their content gets cited, especially in newsletter format.
Yeah. Again, newsletter. They say that's another one. I don't know if that's a topic in itself. That's another content format that can
Oh yeah,
that can be on your content calendar, but also influence the other elements of your content pillars. Because yeah, it all has to make sense. Yeah, look, I get what you're saying. I say my profile does really changes on LinkedIn rarely. Because I do what I do. I do books, I do events, I do marketing. I'm saying them are the three things I do. Them are the three things I'm going to talk about at my events. So and well, apart from that, I do events. Nearly all my posts is about events, really. Nearly all of them, apart from unless I'm doing a book opening. When I get a book in the post, the first draft. But literally, I know what I do. What I do doesn't really change. For many people, I guess finding that, it goes back to our point where you started, Christina. Clarity about what you do. That's the ultimate goal. You need to become clear what you do, how you help, and what your unique approach is to the issue. Within that, we have a lot of flexibility to do many other things. How we tell the stories, in other words. And
yeah. And you have to realize that it's not only you and what you do and how unique you are. Those people that are you're gonna be supporting, they're unique on their own.
mm,
So how can you be generic? And how can I mean you cannot do everything bespoke for every client, and all of a sudden you are inventing the wheel every time,
mm,
right? That's why you have those core content pillar
yeah,
that attract a certain type of business or person to come to you, either for personal branding, storytelling, really understanding how to express yourself, online and reflect what your business does. That's basically what I do. But if if you just think that you're going to have a cookie cutter solution for every person that says I need some support, most likely it's very likely that the person won't be happy,
Yeah.
because you have to acknowledge their unique factor, why they're different, and you have to make why they're different stand out. So in that sense, you have to be as a business owner a little bit of a chameleon, if you want, chameleon, and adapt to what the client might want, as long as it is within your content pillars
Yeah.
and your area of specialty. If you cannot help somebody, if somebody comes to me to do my website, Christina, it's like not gonna happen. So because that's not what I do, right? So but I can recommend somebody that I know, and so on.
Mm. Yeah. Again, I think not reinventing the wheel. I think that's probably the key point for today, right? And I think also your point about the best way to know what to do is to be a follower yourself on social, especially on social media. Rather than sitting there thinking, "Am I doing the right thing?" How do I make sure I get it right? Follow other people and engage with their content and see what they're doing. That is such good advice. Because a lot of people just want to post and ghost. They will post whatever and then they run, never to be seen or heard of again. Don't be that person. A good master is always a great follower before they get to become a master.
Yeah, and if you don't know what to create, what you post about, be in the comments right now.
Mm.
Um, but don't be in the comments, beautiful. I it resonated, really in like that way. Be in the comment, really sharing your opinion about something that you're reading, a conversation that is going on, and then that might give you an idea for a post. All of a sudden, you wrote 4 or 5 lines in a comment, and you can turn the comment into a whole post, and that comment itself.
Yeah, look. I comment based on who and why. I know what I'm trying to say, right? A lot of people will send me the link. They send me their posts, and they go and comment. I don't think anything half the time, right? I'm an easy kind of guy. If I think something about your post, I will say so. If I get the point, I'll say so. If the point resonates, I'll say so. But many people's content does not do anything for me at all.
Yeah, of course, and actually, it might dilute what you're doing. So here's the
Mm.
thing: you cannot comment on everything. If it's not aligned with what you're doing, you shouldn't even take part on the conversation. I mean, you might put a like there to support, but the more you like and the more you comment and the more you spend time on that post, the more posts like that you're gonna
Yeah.
see on your feed. So what I do and what I encourage people to do is, okay, this is the type of business that I do. This is what I'm building. So I use the LinkedIn feature to search for something. I search the topic that I want to discuss, that I want to be known for, and look at other people post about that and see where there is an active conversation going. And now I'm not writing a post. I'm engaging in the conversation. I'm sharing my
Mm.
opinion about the particular topic, especially if it's good and there is a lot of engagement going on in there. So
Mm.
sometimes that's what I call the listening stage. You're just listening. You're observing the culture, what's going on, or how conversations are developing successfully, and you're taking part in that conversation. And then later on, you can use it to create your own post. Will you have the same results? Maybe not. But now
Mm.
LinkedIn knows Christina commented on this post about this specific topic. She also created a post about this specific topic. Now she's going live with Annie on this very specific topic,
Mm.
and next week with somebody else. So the content is all connected,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so it gets shown
Yeah.
to those people that are interested.
Yeah, maybe a good place to leave the conversation today is for me is to say don't chase the likes, don't chase the comment, don't chase anything. You've done your post,
Says anything.
right? Let it go. It's out there. And maybe your only job really is to respond to those who do engage, those who do comment, those who do.
Your
Uh,
main job.
right. That's that. No, it doesn't matter whether you get 1 like, 2 likes, no likes, because people are still seeing your post. I think many people really now they want the likes, and I don't know why. So, likes from the right people, okay. Comments from the right people, your target audience, and otherwise, I can understand. It's rare, like never will I ever send my post to anyone to say please engage. Never, because frankly, I don't. Unless no, there's no reason why I want anyone to comment on my post because it means more work for me. So and I don't want the people who I don't want to work with to comment on my post either. With great post, yeah, love it. So I don't want any of that
Do
stuff.
anything.
That's
It doesn't
annoying
do anything. It
at
doesn't
all.
do anything.
And I say, literally, focus on creating useful content that helps people that you're here to serve. And in the longer you do it, the more relationships you build, the more you start seeing engagement that really counts. I think that's the thing for all of us. A real engagement from the right people, and saying the right things about your content. Really, forget vanity metrics. We say, okay. Christina, make your last point, please. Let's go. We need to go, right? It is
Yeah.
Monday night.
It's all connected, right? So again, if you're here looking, oh, my feed is full of this garbage that I don't want, ask yourself, did you engage with similar garbage last week? So that's the thing, right? Make sure that you can train that feed. You can click on those 3 dots, say I'm not interested, and look for more content that is similar to what you're building, that you're interested on, so that you can engage in those conversations. So everything you're doing is connected. Your profile is not a standalone. It's connected to what you're discussing over time for at least a 90-day block. That's how long your content can live. And comments, they're great. They're great because they introduce you to other people that are engaging in the conversation. Only if the conversation is aligned with what you're doing and you actually have something intelligent to say. If you
Mm,
don't, I mean, you can support somebody and say, I'm here, like, especially if it's a live event, you can just say hi, etc., etc. But don't make those be your only comments because to LinkedIn and to the large language models, those are empty.
yeah, I like that word, empty. Empty equals no value, no use to anyone.
As much love as you can put in that one heart that you send, right? To LinkedIn, the heart is empty. They want to see verbiage
Mm,
that is related to what
words,
it says on your profile.
words, feelings, analysis, conclusion. Something meaningful, not just great posts. Which many people do, right? Look,
Mhm.
I say thank you very much, and I say our time has gone. We've done very well. We're keeping within time, within reason. Is there anything else you want to announce before we go?
No, all good. Thank you, everybody,
Excellent.
for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Say that the technical issues are what they are. I guess all I can do is bear. Hopefully, you bear with us until they get resolved by the platforms, and then we'll start running smoothly again. Or I get a new computer. I don't know which one comes first. Well, you enjoy. So we're back here again in 2 weeks' time. Do connect with us in the meantime if we can be of assistance. Or just connect with us. And I want to know what you do. So that's more my interest. Christina wants to help you to set up your 9 to 5, your new business, right? And create merchandise. Yay! Annie's got a shop. So I'm so happy with myself.
Yes, let's
Anyway,
chat in a few minutes and stay online.
okay, cool. All right, my friends, you take care. I think I've got the right one. Okay, bye everyone. Bye everyone. Button pressed. Come on. Come on.
And he sees you. He sees you.
Tasty. It's not wine, it's water. Can you hear me?
I don't know what happened there. So I'm
Can you hear
playing
me?
the song, but nothing's happening.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I
Okay.
don't know what I'm saying.
So I
I'm trying
just
to end
want
this
to
stream.
tell you. Oh,
Hold
that's
on, hold on. One sec.
okay.
I'm trying to end the stream, but it doesn't seem to want to end.
And he sees you. He sees you. He sees you. Oh, from the children with no voice and borrowed rules.